When you listen to this entire episode, it means you liked it, and I thank you for it. Stay tuned until the end because you will know more about my guest and you will also know how you can support my podcast. Welcome to the Life Affairs podcast. This is a place where we share life experiences and the many lessons learned by just living. Join me to immerse ourselves and take a closer look at the stories that shaped and defined us. Just remember, there's no judgment and a lot of understanding on today's episode of the Life Affairs podcast. My guest today is the first person I know who shouts from the rooftops of her community and social media and her podcast that pursuing our freedom means taking one step at a time without fear. She is building her dream life and I am on the sideline cheering for her because in a way she's paving the way for me to be brave and pursue my freedom too. She is a high-achieving academic, a valedictorian to be precise. Her smartness could successfully lead her to many normal paths, but she is not settling for this. She's settling for her societal freedom, believes, and fosters her action in building a meaningful life by challenging the status quo. And believe me, she is not a weirdo and not living on the edge of the society. She lives in her van and travels around Australia and works from wherever she is. She uses the best tech to achieve her goals. Join me to learn what it takes and what it means to be brave and live our journey towards our dreams. I'm having my cup of tea as usual. Rosie is on the other side of the world in Australia. I'm not sure what she's drinking. I didn't ask her. Here we go with our conversation. Tell me, Rosie, when you knew for the first time that you want to live in a van and travel around the country?
Yeah, that's a really hard question. I think that feeling's always been there, but the biggest bucket moment was when my mum was dying. It really brings into perspective, life's short. She was only 60. It was out of the blue. And I went, you know what am I doing working in a job that makes me miserable? Fuck this. I've always wanted to travel around Australia. I've always wanted to convert a van. And maybe 2 weeks before Mum died, I went out and bought a van and it was like, right, let's do this.
How long time ago is this?
This is the interesting part. It was September 2019 and my partner at the time, we're not together anymore, but I said to her, I'll have it converted in 6 months. And then we're leaving. That's it. We're living in the van. It took me 4 years.
This sounds like a big change of plans. You are now pursuing this dream alone, and right before it started, COVID strikes in 2019. How did it affect your planning?
You know, we were really lucky in Australia. It had minimal impact, but it was kind of scary. It was unprecedented, right? As everybody listening knows. And then I started studying because I kind of listened to someone else's advice, which I shouldn't have. Trying to please others and not listening to my heart. And it kind of just got put on the back burner. I had this fierce dream. Mum was dying. She died. I'm like, yes, let's do the van. We're leaving. I don't care about society, anyone's expectations. And COVID hit. I started studying a master's of business administration. And I just got caught up back in that rat race or whatever you want to call it. Caught up in life and the direction that society was pushing me. So it was taking me away from my dream to live in my van.
And then what happened? How did it hit you that, okay, I'm going back to my original plan to go in the van?
It was slow. It took me a while to get back there.
Can you take me with you and tell me how did you get back on track?
Yeah, and this will touch on my relationship, right? So we'd been together before we broke up, 8 years, a long time. And initially, my partner was really keen to move into the van full time. She was fully supportive of me. And then it came to light, actually, she didn't want to do it. And I got really upset because this is what I was being called to do. So, we argued about that a bit, and it felt too hard. So the van wasn't really being converted. And then, several years passed, and my partner started a new career as a nurse. And the way that panned out is she had to move away. So we were doing distance for a while. And the interesting thing is we were both the happiest we'd ever been. She was really far away. I was converting the van, feeling amazing. She was doing her thing. And I just sort of thought, isn't that interesting that now we're apart, we both feel we're able to fully commit to the things we want to do. And so we had to have a conversation saying, I don't think we want to go in the same direction. And it just gave so much clarity. From that point, I was like, right, it's just me and my dog. I'm going to convert the van. I'm moving out of my house. I'm getting rid of 90% of my possessions. And within the space of 4 or 5 months, I was in my van when I'd been procrastinating for 4 years.
Relationships maintained solely for the sake of meeting expectations and avoiding change can drain us and lead to unhappiness. Sometimes choosing breakup can open a world of opportunities. I don't take breaking up lightly. I do compare it to like being fired, as harsh as and inconvenient as it may be. It leads to new horizons and opportunities.
I was talking to this the other day with a friend. We were talking about relationships, friendships, and romantic relationships, and how it's really important to know when we need to walk away, because often we just feel we have to persevere and see it through, and we got to try as hard as we can, which I did for 8 years. But I had a realization: what am I doing? I am compromising my core values for someone that, I used to love, but now it's just we're living together because we've been together for this long, and so that's nuts. Absolutely nuts. And so when I was brave enough to end it, it was absolutely liberating. It was scary, I have to say. Being single for the first time in 8 years is terrifying, but I have never felt so aligned. Here I am living my dream. I'm parked up in the van by a creek. I've got the Starlink satellite internet on the roof of my van. I've got my dog about 1 meter away from me on my bed. You can see my computer screen shoved in the background. I'm in my van. Here I am. I've never had less possessions, less money, but I've never been this happy.
It's so amazing what you're saying. But you're an academic person and worked at the university. What are your technical skills to convert a van?
My technical skills? Nothing. I think my biggest skill is being curious. I have no building background, carpentry background, anything. So it was a trial by fire. I definitely learned what not to do. I made some expensive mistakes, but I built my home. It's not super pretty, but it's functional, and I'm proud of that. I think for a while I was a bit ashamed to show people my van, because van life's a really popular thing in Australia. I'm not sure what it's like in the Netherlands. And so many people have these beautiful, pristine vans. They just look so pretty. And mine is not pretty. So I sort of hid it for a bit. And I thought, you know what? It's not about being pretty. I'm so proud of myself for persevering for 4 bloody years to get this thing finished. And I've got my air fryer in here. I've got my microwave. I've got my second monitor to edit my podcast. Here I am with you recording a podcast. I've got my fridge and freezer. It blows my mind where I am now compared to where I was 6 months ago.
Rosie, do you have the personality of someone who would be minimalistic and live with the minimum possible, not wanting all these material things around you? Is this who you are?
It's been a learning curve. I'm a bit of a sentimental person. Having lost both my parents, I like to keep things that remind me of them. But I've really learned that an object it's not my parents, right? It helps me remember them. And I've really learnt to start letting go of things. When I was preparing to move into the van, I had to get rid of a lot of things from the house. And it was a process. You know, I thought, I can't get rid of this. What if I need it? It's just in case. What if I need this one textbook just in case, you know, if I want to do marketing or finance, like silly things. And then it's almost contagious. You start giving things away, getting rid of them, and you just can't help but do it more and more and more. I gave away so many things. I did keep some things, sentimental items of mum and dad that you can't replace. Dad was an artist and a carpenter, so I kept some of those things. But I think that's okay, right? So that's in storage, but 90% of my stuff is gone. And you know what? I haven't missed a single thing. It's interesting because I went back to the storage unit maybe a month ago. I needed a particular tool that I wanted to have in the van. And I was looking what was in the storage unit, and I thought, what's in this bag? I pulled out this big bag, opened it up. It was a huge bag, like one of the plastic huge bags that sometimes you put clothes in. It was full of coat hangers. I thought, Rosie, why the heck did you think you needed to store coat hangers? That's something that's easily replaceable. So I'm not immune to hanging on to things you don't need, but it's been a really cool process, and I highly encourage everybody to just begin looking at the items they have around them and go, hey, does this bring me joy? Do I actually need this, or am I hanging on to it because maybe I'll need it one day? That's the biggest thing for me. I'll go, I might need this one day. It's usually stuff I don't use.
I feel you. I'm moving again for the second time in like 3-4 years. And I have boxes that they're going to go with me to the new house. I have not opened them for years. The last time I opened them was to move them to this house. We take them with us, we put them on the shelf, and then when we move again, we take them back. We don't even remember what's in these boxes.
Isn't it crazy?
It's for this one day that might happen. And if they are closed, they won't fit anymore. We're not the size 10 years ago.
Yeah, I'm guilty of that one too. And I do wonder why we place such importance on items. What is that about? Is it because we've been groomed to believe that from society? Like, I really wonder where that comes from. I don't know where I learned that.
The other thing is the fear of losing this thing that we possess. What if we couldn't find it again? For me, it's inexplicable. Is that the right word? I cannot explain it. Why?
No, yeah. You mentioned fear. I think that's a big one, actually. We're scared to lose things. And as human beings, we're wired to avoid pain. That's just a natural instinct. And if we feel we're going to lose something, we're going to try and avoid that. It's in our biology. The silly thing is, we've evolved as human beings, and losing a coffee mug is not putting our life in danger.
It puts our mood in danger.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
It changes our mood, and the other will feel in danger.
Yeah, accurate.
How about the construction work you did on? I'm fascinated. You know, at home, I don't do construction work. My husband does all this. But for you, you did it all yourself. And of course, as women, I am raised not to carry a hammer. Bullshit, of course. And look down at if I'm doing this, like I'm not good at it. I will never be good at it. So tell me about you.
Yeah, there was judgment on that, I think, from a lot of people. You know, are you going to pay someone to do that? Well, no. I want to learn how to do that. And people looked at me like I was mad. Why would you want to do something you've never done? Like, you're ridiculous. But actually, I find trying new things really exciting. It challenges me because I can be a really impatient person, and I absolutely hate being bad at things. I really don't like it. I think that's true for everybody, but oh, I don't do well when I'm not good at something. So doing this van really pushed me to my limits. I would make mistakes every single day, cutting a bit of wood too short or buying the wrong material. For example, I insulated the floor and I decided to use spray foam. So it's in this can with a nozzle and you spray it. I thought, yeah, it'll use 3 cans. It's about $80. Ended up using 20 cans, turned into this very expensive thing. And then I learned you don't really need to insulate the floor in Australia. It was a waste of time, and I lost about 10 centimetres of head height. And I'm quite tall. I'm 180 centimetres tall, so I need that head height. That's just one example.
Hold on, you're 180?
Yeah.
What? Living in a van?
Well, yeah, and so that was part of it too. I had to choose a van that had the head height. It was non-negotiable to me that I needed to be able to stand. If I'm living in it full time, I do not want to be hunched over. I want to be comfortable. So that was a decision-making process. And I opted to get what's called an extra long wheelbase. So it's a really long van, which is great. I have room in here for all the things. But the compromise is I can't fit in a normal car space. So if I happen to be in the city and need to go to the shops, it's really hard to park. So it's the things you learn that you never would have thought of when you're building it. But yeah, I've taught myself from YouTube. The University of YouTube, that is how I've learned how to do this. There has been a lot of swearing, a lot of injuries, a lot of wanting to give up. It's really taught me to take a breath. When stuff's not going my way, it's like, oh, well, and what are you going to do about it? Because in the past, I would have just thrown in the towel, like, fuck this, it's too hard. Walk away. But I had this van. I've put a lot of money into it. I need to finish it. I need to live in it. My lease is running out at my house. So I just had to finish it. And so I think I've really grown as a person. I've picked up skills. I would not feel comfortable charging someone for me to make them something because I'm not very good at it. But I've learned a lot and I've grown as a person. I think I'm more resilient. I've learned a lot about myself and how difficult I find it to learn things for the first time. I thought I was good at trying new stuff, and maybe I am, but actually it's really messy. I struggle with it.
You went back to the storage and get whatever you need. So how is your traveling? Are you getting further from your comfort zone, your town, or how does it work for you?
So people listening might want to look on a map because I'm guessing most people aren't familiar with Australia. But I lived in the state of Queensland, the capital city called Brisbane. So that's Eastern Australia, essentially, like halfway down. I'm currently in the state of Victoria, which is about a 20-hour drive from where I was. And you know how I ended up here is a friend I made that I met at a van life event just 2 weeks after I moved into a van. A friend I made there bought a block of land. And she rang me up and said, oh my God, Rosie, I bought this block of land. I've found a space on the paddock. It's perfect for you and Tilly. And I just went, right, I'm coming right now. And I hightailed it down. I didn't stop anywhere to enjoy the sights. I just drove. And I've been on this block of land for maybe 3 weeks. I just love it. And part of it, number one, I love this person. She's just amazing. She's in her early 50s, just so fierce. She's amazing. So I'm really inspired by her. But I was also really drawn to living on the block of land because as a little girl, that was a dream of mine. I remember as a 8-year-old asking my mum to tell me bedtime stories about my block of land. I didn't own a block of land, but I wanted my mum to tell me about this block of land that I dreamed of. So it has been a dream for a long time, that calling to just get out of the city, be in nature, do things a bit differently. I think I was just born with it. It's always been there.
Do you get lonely?
Yeah, I was thinking about that actually, driving to the location for us to record. I think loneliness is an inevitable part of van life because, especially for a single woman like me, I have my dog, but that's a one-way conversation if I want to talk. And it's very easy to isolate yourself when you're in a van. You could quite easily not interact with anybody. And I'm quite introverted, so it's challenging for me, or outside of my comfort zone, to talk to new people. But I've really had to learn how to do that. And I was saying before, the lady whose land I'm on, I met at a van life event. And it blows my mind because going to events like that isn't really my thing. I find social gatherings really intimidating, and I think they're really shallow, like people chit-chat about stupid stuff like the weather and let's get a coffee. Like, I just hate it. But I took a punt and went to this event because I'd just started van life. And it was amazing to be surrounded by like-minded people. I had never experienced it before. There were hundreds of people all living in their van that talk with each other, that go away and have time alone in their van, which was amazing. Like, everybody just respected each other's boundaries, and that's where I made this friend. So yes, van life is lonely. That's the price you pay, right, to live in a van. But it's a choice to put yourself out there and meet new people. So I'm still learning how to do that, but it's totally possible. There's some really cool people on the road.
So what do you talk about with van people, van lifestyle people? Because we live, we work, we go to the supermarket, we do events, we go partying or dinner or whatever. It's a different lifestyle. So things come to talk about. Tell me about van lifestyle conversations.
You know what usually starts the conversation is my dog. She's really cute. And they'll go, oh, what a cute dog. And it's a really nice way to start the conversation because I'm not great at starting a conversation. I find that very intimidating. And then you talk about your van, you know, do you live in it full time or are you just on a holiday? Did you convert it yourself? What model do you have? How much solar do you have on the roof? What size is your battery bank? All these things that I think everyday people living in a house would go, what are you talking about? That is gibberish to me. So it's cool. And also talking about places they've been that they recommend. There's so many hidden gems, and I'd like to avoid the really touristy areas if I can. So talking to people is a cool way to learn about places that are off the beaten track a little bit. That's mainly what you talk about. Your van, where you've travelled, and I guess also your outlook on life. I find the conversations a lot deeper. It's not, what do you do for work? That's often a first question when you meet people, I find. But when you meet a van lifer, it's maybe, how long have you been on the road? It's a cool question. You know, what made you want to move into a van? And so you hear people's life stories. It's magical, actually. I really love it.
Oh, I really love it too. You mentioned that van life in Australia is kind of popular and people like their vans are their apartments, their houses. This is good. They make them. So this means you easily find places to park your van because it costs also here in the Netherlands. It's very expensive to park your car or your van somewhere. And some cars, some vans have specific places to park. How can you have the freedom over there to go where you want to go, park where you want to park?
At first, I was really intimidated by that. Like, where do people go? Like, there's caravan parks, but that is so not my thing. You know, you pack in like sardines and no, I'm not interested in that. And I actually found a phone app that cost $10 and it's full of this wealth of information. Everybody in the van life community, people who caravan or camp or tour Australia are all on there. And they put a pin on the map of places that are good to stay. So there's like thousands of entries on there. So when I was traveling down to Victoria, I needed to rest a little bit overnight on the way down. 20 hours is a long time. So I just went on the app, found a free place to stay overnight. There was a creek. There were big trees everywhere. There was even a toilet that felt safe. It was dog friendly, so I could have Tilly there. So there's this untapped wealth of knowledge that I didn't even know was there. So what was this big scary thing of where am I going to find where to stay? All of a sudden became really easy. And I've also become more comfortable with not having a plan. Like I don't have to book where I'm staying every night. In the past, absolutely I do. If I'm going on a holiday, I want to know exactly where I'm going, when, what hotel, what I'm doing, like everything down to the minute. But I've now just learned, hey, go with the flow. And I've even parked up in a street in front of houses and just slept there the night. I never would have thought I would be the kind of person to do that or even feel safe doing that. But actually I do feel safe, and having my dog with me I think is a big part of that. She's only little, but she helps me to feel safe.
How little? How old is she, Tilly?
She will be turning 2 in about 10 days, something like that. And she's an Australian Kelpie, so a working dog. They usually work on farms. But she's quite small for that breed. So that breed often gets up to, 23 kilos. She's 13 kilos. So she's little, and I love it.
She's young and energetic. Can you take me through a typical day? How you wake up, what you do, how your day would end?
It's been really hot in Australia. And one thing I've learned, even though I've insulated the van, it gets really hot in the van. Like it's essentially a metal box, right? So in terms of when I wake up, when it gets hot in the van, I'm awake and I'm out of there because it's really unpleasant. You know, I take Tilly out. She does her business. We'll probably play fetch. She's obsessed with chasing the ball. I might eat breakfast. You know, I might be wandering around in my pajamas for a while. It's just my own schedule. So every day kind of looks different. And I work on the road. So for people listening who don't know me, I'm a podcaster. I'm a small business owner. And I've chosen to do that on the road. So I need to record my podcast episodes. I need to edit them. I need to be involved in my online community, which is the core of my business. And I do all of that from my van. But I can choose when I do it, which is wonderful because it never suited me to have a really strict routine of you have to turn up the work at this time, leave at this time, and you better be productive during those hours.
Otherwise, you will be labeled with some kind of disorder if you don't like that.
I really struggled. Like it's just, I'm most productive at night. I'm a night owl. So working in a traditional job really didn't suit me. It wasn't great. And for years I tried to fit in and adapt to that, but just wasn't working. And eventually, thought, stuff this. Why am I trying to change who I am to fit the mold when there are so many other options? You don't have to be in a traditional 9-to-5 job. That's just what we're raised to believe we have to do. You don't have to do that.
Especially now that you have met so many like-minded people, you're learning from them. You are free-spirited, and there is nothing wrong with it. In the past, you would spend time at Woodstock, but now you're spending time in a life van.
Yeah.
Do you like cooking?
And I love it. Do I like cocaine?
No. Do you, by the way?
Yeah.
Back on track. I wanted to know if you like cooking and how is it to cook in your van kitchen?
I love cooking. because I love food. The part I don't like is the clean up afterwards. But I love cooking. So I have outside the van, I've got a gas hookup so I can cook on a gas stove. And I love being outside, so that's nice. It's like having an outdoor kitchen. But inside, I have an induction cooktop, so that's electric. I've got a microwave because I love having leftovers and it's quicker to reheat it in the microwave. I've got an air fryer because I love cooking on that. I like making homemade chips. The other day I made a roast pork, even had a roast lamb as well the other week. Like, this is luxury. It's just like being in a house. I don't feel like I'm compromising on anything. There's less space in here, but it encourages me to be outside, and that's where I'm happiest. So yes, I love cooking, but I love eating even more.
So what is your further plan? How long you're planning to stay in the van, and how do you see yourself? Not very far future, because I don't like this question in 5 years. How do you see yourself in a few months?
Yeah. I mean, that's interesting. You know, this 5-year plan, we're always asked that, aren't we? As if we should know. That's so far away. But if we're looking closer, the next few months, I definitely see myself in the van. I'm loving it. I'm going to keep doing this until I don't love it. How long will that be? I don't know. Maybe it'll be 6 months. Maybe next week I'll crack the shits and not want to be in here. But it feels so right at this moment. I could be on the road for the rest of my life. I'm open to that. And I'm open if I'm going to move back into a house. I couldn't think of anything worse at this moment in time. But if I do choose to do that, that's okay. So for the next few months, I'm going to continue traveling in the van. I'm going to continue releasing episodes on my podcast, meeting amazing people, growing my online community, which you're part of. And it's amazing, I think. If we touch on community, that is such a big part of van life, because it would be super lonely without community. And I don't think it would be lonely in a good way. So community is crucial. That's where we feel connected to people. We learn things. We can share the good times, the bad times, ask for advice, or just have someone to sit with you and listen. I really am a huge advocate for community. And I think if community was missing from van life, I don't think I'd last.
I think for a very long time, I confused community with being with a group of people. Then I realized that community is a place to grow, to feel like you are being yourself and you can just say what you want to say, be yourself. I'm so glad to be part of this free Spirited Sisterhood community, because like from all over the world, we all want to just cut the shit off and be ourselves. And these kind of communities that you are building with the sisterhood this is what we are trying to do together, to grow and move in the direction where we want to be. It's not like another woman supporting woman bullshit.
No.
Feeling, vulnerable and not judged, because I think women among each other, they're very scared of being judged.
And it can be very lonely being a woman, because there's so many standards we're expected to live up to. And if you dare be different, look out. That is not allowed. And there's also this toxic culture, I think, amongst some women where we compete. You know, it's a competition and we just have to be better than each other. And I've got caught up in that before. I really don't like it. That's no way to live. And the free spirited sisterhood, or any community that I'm wanting to be part of, is about giving everybody a voice. Give them a voice, a space to feel safe, a space to be heard. And this is important for me, I don't know about you, a space to be challenged. I like my thinking to be challenged. It can be really uncomfortable. If you said to me, Rosie, that's a load of bullshit, and here's why, I will listen to that. I might get angry, like, no. Then I'll go away for half an hour and go, actually, she has a point. And that is personal growth. So that, I think the key elements to a community are, there's this safety component. That sounds a bit boring, but it's important to feel safe, to feel heard. That's also important. People aren't very good at listening in general. So to have a community where you're heard, listened to, game changer. And that challenging component. Because if you stay the same, what's life going to look like? I want to be a different person when I wake up tomorrow. That might sound a bit ridiculous, but I think it's possible, even if my thinking has changed just a little bit, or I've had this conversation with you. I'm going to be a different person tomorrow because I've had this conversation and you're making me think about different things. And I think what some people call community is definitely not. It's us obsessing about trying to fit in. But true community is about a sense of belonging.
You and I, we met in an online course, and at that moment we were just beginning and we didn't know where we're going. We're trying to learn about podcasting, start our podcast, learn from the best, of course, Pat Flynn. And we connected. I feel like I'm following you in your journey, and it's so exciting because we build a friendship based on the topic of podcasting. Going deeper in our conversations, we got to know each other. And this is one thing I like about podcasting, how we can go deep in conversations and not just scratch the surface.
It was an online course, but in a way that was a community too, a different kind of community. But we found each other because we had something in common. And here we are. Is it a year later? I'm not sure. We're still in touch. You're in the Netherlands. I'm in Australia. We've got different time zones. But here we are. And I think that's beautiful. When you connect with people who are like-minded, you can't break that bond. And when I say like-minded, I don't mean the same life experiences. Like, our experiences are so different. So different. But I think what we value is very similar, and what we desire in life, at the big picture level, is so similar, and that's what draws us together. Fierce women attract fierce women. We're in it together.
The big picture. We will keep our eye on it.
I can do that.
Rosie is the creator and host of the podcast The Pursuit of Freedom. In each episode, she talks with women from all walks of life. They share two common traits. They are inspiring and have rich life stories like you and me. You can listen to her podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. I am also a member of Rosie's community, the free Spirited Sisterhood. I mean, come on. Isn't the name get you goosebumps of happiness? It's a space not for ordinary women. It's for fierce women, trailblazers, and anyone who wants to break the status quo and live life on their own terms. In this community, we share our stories, we learn from experts in many fields, we stay up to date with the latest trends and social media rules, and so much more. These are all important for growing our businesses and our personal brands. Join us and become part of our vibrant community. You'll be in good company. Find more details in the show notes. Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you enjoyed it, please share it with your friends and family and ask them to subscribe. Leaving a rating and review on platforms like Apple Podcasts can also help boost the podcast ranking. Your support through word of mouth is greatly appreciated. If you feel I'm encouraging you to tell your story, contact me on rula@thelifeaffairspodcast.com. You will see my email in the show notes. I'll see you next time.